Lost my agenda. Oh, here we go. Welcome. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
of the United States.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Our first order of business will be to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. Motion passes. The next item is our consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or a citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless otherwise noted.
Madam President, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. Motion passes. On the regular agenda, our first item is the FY19 third quarter impact fee loan balance presentation by staff.
Madam President, for the record, Christine Tandler, Budget Coordinator. I'm here for an information briefing on the third quarter impact fee loan balance. At the beginning of FY19, we had a loan balance of $16.6 million. That's down to $9.7 million as of June 30th. Some of the main impact fee projects this year are State VMP, the Cole Road projects, as well as the Linder. Extraordinary impact fees began the year with a balance of $843,000 and has an ending balance of $1.3 million. In accordance with the Ordinance 231A and Resolution 2270, staff reports a general fund loan of $9.7 million to the impact fee program. I will stand for questions.
Are there any questions? No? Okay. So there's no action required on that item. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the to award the construction bid for the Gowen Road Bridge 2173. And we'll start with the staff report on that one.
Good evening, Madam President, Commissioners. Diane Bevins, Manager of Capital Projects. This is a decision briefing for the bid award for Gowen Road Bridge 2173. The purpose of this project is to replace the aging bridge over the New York Canal. Just some notes about the bridge. It is a wood beam bridge built in 1943. There is one beam that is cracked that we continuously monitor. It's a weight restricted bridge. There is a high amount of industrial traffic in this area, and the bridge railing is in bad shape, which requires a high level of maintenance. This is a vicinity map of the location. This is on Gowen Road, just west of Orchard. And here are the bid results. Knife River was the low cost responsive bidder. And we do have a couple of pictures of the existing bridge below. The staff recommendation is to accept the bid and award the contract to River Corporation. I will stand for any comments or questions.
Are there any questions or comments?
Madam President,
Commissioner Baker?
I did have a question. How much higher than the budget did this bridge bid come in?
Madam President, Commissioner Baker, with the 5% contingency that we add to the low bid, it is $341,000 short of the budget in FY20.
And what percentage is that?
It is 17.9, 18% above the budget.
And what was that figure again? 300 and what?
341,000.
And we did not anticipate that happening, did we?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yes, I have a couple.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah, Madam President, and Diane, obviously this is very close to the Orchard Street alignment that we had briefings on recently. So there'll be quite a bit of construction going on when design and construction happens. Can you tell me whether and why, whether this was even considered to be rolled into that project so that we wouldn't run the risk of exceeding our estimates, or and if so, why it was excluded from holding off until we do all the construction on the adjacent Orchard Street?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, I don't think they're directly related. This project, or this bridge with its sufficiency rating being so low and it being weight restricted, has been on a high priority list for bridge replacement through our bridge program. So I think it just would enhance a route if there was any closures during the Orchard realignment.
Okay.
Traffic would be able to go across this bridge and not have to go through the traffic of that construction project.
Okay, that answers partly. The other is whether the design is to widen the bridge from its current footprint.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, I actually don't have an answer to that. I don't know.
Really?
It would be based off the master street map, and it would include pedestrian facilities, which the current bridge today does not. But I don't have the exact width.
Any
Does
other
anybody
questions?
have that answer?
Ah.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, it's still 2 lanes. But like I said, it will have sidewalks, which it doesn't today.
One car lane going east, one going west.
Yes.
Great. So fill me in again. This bridge is at risk of collapsing very soon. Is that correct? Is that the need to move on this right now?
President, Commissioner Hanson, I don't think I would be, but if it was a risk of collapsing very soon, I think the bridge would be closed.
Yeah,
But
I expect
it's
so.
in poor condition.
Okay, thank you.
All right, other questions? No? All right, so we need a decision on this, whether to award the contract or not, correct?
Well, Madam President, obviously our costs are going up continually. But because it's aging, because it was 1943, and it's probably one of the worst bridges that we have in the county, I guess we have no choice. We're gonna have to find the extra money somewhere. So I would move approval of the award of the construction bid to Knife River Corporation for the amount of $1,689,670.
I'll second that.
All right, is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right, the next item on our agenda, which I've just buried, is our budget. And we'll begin, this is a public hearing. So I'll open the public hearing and we'll begin with a staff presentation.
Madam President, for the record, Christine Chandler, Budget Coordinator. This is the public hearing for the proposed FY 2020 budget. All of the public hearing requirements have been met to date. We advertised in the Idaho Statesman on August 5th, 6th, 12th, and 13th. The budget has been posted on our website since the beginning of August. The current commission-directed planning assumptions are shown on the screen, including a 3% plus new construction rule increase to the property tax certification, as well as utilizing the new capital allocation methodology.
Well, Madam President, perhaps Christine, for people who are listening.
Oh,
or
okay,
You
perfect.
could go back and read through the lines.
Okay. On the new capital allocation methodology, the number one priority is to meet ACHD's programming obligations. That includes both ADA and environmental compliance, as well as the VRF ballot commitments from 2008 for safe routes to school and congestion relief, as well as matching impact fee collections with required general funds on impact fee eligible projects. The second item is primary focus of safety and maintenance. This is for signals, crossing, and safety projects with documented needs, as well as asset management, including capital maintenance, bridges, both minor and major. And then a secondary focus of system enhancements being neighborhood plans, bike master plan projects that are not funded within the VRF, as well as non-impact fee eligible capital improvement plan projects. The planning actions taken in preparation of the FY 2020 budget was that at the beginning, we had to adjust $20.22 million, reschedule and remove them between FY 20 and 21 to match projected funding. We also reduced the ACHD future facilities reservation by $6.8 million and reprogrammed it toward project execution. And we did not calculate a COLA consideration for the commission or the executive team. Shown on this screen, the total projected revenue for FY 2020 is $123.7 million. Of that, $116.8 million will come from new revenue. On the expenditure side, we do have a balanced budget. Capital is $60.2 million, operational at $26.7 million, and labor at $33.8 million. This is a pie chart depicting the breakout of our revenue sources. We have 4 major revenue sources at the district: property taxes, highway users fund, which is fuel taxes, impact fees, and Ada County registration fees. The proposed expenditures at the district, we are still have about a 50-50 split between capital and operations. On the operational side, you'll see that maintenance is 25% of that, followed by development and technical services. Some operational highlights that are included in the proposed FY 2020 budget are some ADA and pedestrian improvements, including new controllers for the flashing yellow arrow and pedestrian crossing functionality, as well as an inventory of diagonal ramps, push button inventory that came out of our ADA transition plan, and an implementation plan and policy and ADA coordinator position. We have some neighborhood plans for Garden City and North Meridian, as well as bike map revisions. And the chip seal area will be the second half of Zone 2, which is South Meridian, south of I-84. The proposed capital budget of $60.2 million is broken out, is shown on the screen, with roadways being 38%. Intersections, I have broken out between roundabouts and traditional intersections. The roundabouts are currently in the design phases. So in the next few years, you'll see that number grow as we begin to build those, and then followed by maintenance and community programs. Some major community program projects planned for construction are some pedestrian crossings in Deer Flat and School Avenue, and Cherry Lane and Meridian Library Ped Crossing, the Shoshone Bikeway. On the capital side of projects, I've broken it out between design, right-of-way, and then construction. I have noted on each project which is impact fee eligible. So as you can see in design, we have some big intersections coming up. We have Eagle and Lake Hazel, Amity and Maple Grove, and Eagle and State, as well as the design of the Orchard Street realignment. In right-of-way is Gowen Road Bridge 2110. This is the one that's west of I-84. It's the first of our large bridges through the large bridge strategy, with the program construction currently in 2023 of about $6.5 million. On the construction side of capital projects, we do have the Cole Victory intersection as well as Cole McLaughlin to Victory. 2 miles of 10 mile to be completed, to complete that section of that corridor. The 10 mile McMillan to Chinden portion will be built through the Costco Stars agreement. And ITD will be building with our participation the the Chinden Boulevard and Locust Grove intersection. Staff recommends approval of the FY 2020 budget as outlined above of $123.7 million and authorize the commission president to sign the property tax certification of about $42 million. I stand for questions.
All right, are there questions? No? Okay. All right, next we're gonna go to members of the public who would like to address the budget, and we have a number of people who have signed up. I'm just gonna take them in order, and then if there's anyone else that didn't sign up to testify, we'll take that testimony as well. So the first person who signed up is Don Kostelik. And if you would, please state your name and address for the record. Thanks.
Don Kostelek, 3336 East Frontrunner, Boise. First, want to thank the commissioners who voted last week to affirm the agency's commitment to safety on Bramier and 27th. And what you saw here, definitely thank you for the ADA commitments in that budget. That is impressive. The budget you're considering is a similar decision on a larger scale to Bramier and 27th. It's about convenience of cars or the safety of people. I request you restore the community programs to the amount aligned with the overall budget variance, which I think is about 8% less, rather than the 47% cut. Additionally, the budget raised some questions I hope you can answer before your decision. One, the budget posted Monday with the agenda, and thank you for that, has a date of July 31st. I know you had a work session August 7th. I was not in the pre-commission today. I assume there were no changes between then and now. I just want to confirm. Number two, why did ACHD's posting of the draft budget, the full 98-page one, come a week after ACHD's budget open house? And why was there no mention of the community program cuts during the presentations at the July 18th open house? Three, the figures in the staff report and budget still do not match. Why? We don't really know what you're adopting if the numbers don't match. In isolation, I don't think this would be an issue, but given the last couple years with Thomas Road Bridge and the design of the new administration building, it raises concerns about other things slipping under the commission's radar. Without matching numbers, we're left to wonder what other projects could surprisingly emerge this year. Four, will you reconsider limits on staff travel to out-of-state conferences? We know government doesn't pay a lot, you know that. It's about investing in professional development so they can remain state of the practice. And we don't always get that at Idaho-based conferences. Five, will you consider diverting some of the director's budget so he can attend the Vision Zero Cities Conference in New York City in October? The handout and description you received on Vision Zero earlier this year, in my opinion, was a misrepresentation of what Vision Zero is and what ACHD is doing in that regard. A good place to find this money would be in the director's legislative relations budget, which I see increases from $91,000 to $100,000. I worked up an estimate for the director to attend this conference. It's $1,800, which includes a workshop by the Institute of Transportation Engineers on managing speed for safety. I was budget conscious, so I even estimated for the same hostel in Harlem that I'm staying at. It's $130 a night. It's really cool for Manhattan. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Anyone have questions for Mr. Kostelik?
Madam President, I just have a question for Christine. Would you put up the pie chart? I don't have a question for you, Mr. Kostelik.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you put up the community programs? Yes, 10% of our budget goes to community program.
10% of the capital budget.
10% of the capital budget, yeah. Thank you. Just want to point that out.
Christine, I had a couple questions for you. Mr. Kostelik was asking about what it is that we're adopting. And it's what is proposed is what was published in the newspaper.
Correct.
So that's the budget that's being considered. It is also, there's a link on our website with that same budget, correct?
Madam President, that's correct.
Okay. Sure. You didn't use quite all of your 3 minutes, so I'll let you.
2 seconds.
2 seconds. I appreciate that.
Be 30.
What I was referring to, the budget that is in the online shows property taxes of 42.460 million. What was presented was 42.161 million. So there's a roughly $300,000 difference in excess in the published full budget document than what was in the staff report and in the presentation. So that was the number I was referring to. I apologize for not clarifying that.
Madam President, Commissioners, the difference is the property tax replacement money. That is not something that we have to certify for. It includes a yearly amount for ag equipment replacement money, personal property replacement money, solar farm replacement money, and recovered homeowners exemption property tax.
So those are not items we have to include.
We do
in
not have to
these-
certify those. We are guaranteed those paid from the general fund of the state.
Okay,
So the 42 million is what the certification will be done.
okay, thank you. All right, the next person who is signed up, Gary Bloom. And if you would, state your name and address for the record.
President and honorable members of the commission, Gerald Bloom, 4603 North Collister Drive, Boise. This afternoon, I received an email that was addressed to you by the president of the Collister Neighborhood Association, Suzanne Stone. This email was a request on behalf of the Neighborhood Association to include items in your final budget. In the City of Boise's Neighborhood Association Toolkit section on impact, engage with commissions, the fourth line item states, and I quote, "Discuss the association's position as a board and do outreach to all members of your community to represent all positions. As a resident on Collister for 31 plus years and on the association's email correspondence list, I'm here tonight to tell you no outreach took place. I therefore request that Suzanne Stone's email to you be regarded as personal and not representative of the Neighborhood Association. And on a side note, I would also like to say, please add the 3% plus growth so that we can fund the neighborhood bike plan. Thanks for your time. Any questions?
Questions? No? Thank you. Next person who signed up is Mark Eubank? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You don't have to, but we'll give you another opportunity later even. Okay. All right, Bob Van Arnen. And if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Bob Van Arnhem. I live at 3049 South White Post Way in Eagle, Idaho. Madam President, members of the commission, I brought some pictures to show what I'm here for, and it's to request that money be included in the budget to complete a project in our neighborhood that next year would be the third or fourth season that the sidewalks have been marked. This is the standard that is correct, and then the subsequent slides show the sidewalks in need. I will say that ACHD did get out this spring, which we appreciate, and corrected a number of the sidewalks that were cracked and deteriorated. But these are the corners where the sidewalk itself is settled beneath the curb, and you can see the marks that have been on the sidewalks for the second or third season now. And the concern is that if this isn't budgeted for, yet another season will go by and it won't be done.
Have you sent these locations into the district so that we get them on a list of sidewalks that need to be repaired?
Let me answer it this way. The people of the district who are aware of the problem should know the locations because they marked the sidewalks. But I have not myself sent the locations. I can certainly do that, and they're marked on the slides.
Yeah,
I
I
would
don't-
say also that one member of ACHD did send us a chart that showed the straightaway sidewalks that were to be repaired, but it did not include the corners. My main reason for being here last fall was as much the corners as anything.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I can't tell from the markings really who marked them, but
right, I'm not looking to find fault with anyone. It's mainly just, I've been told in the past, these things have to be budgeted for, and they have to be budgeted for prior to the year they're going to be executed. And given the length of time this has gone on, it just seemed to me that it's something that ought to be done. And a question, this has nothing to do with the curbs. This is the grass in the streets, which I've been told has been put on, not through ACHD, through a board member, a commission member, not a commission member, a HOA board member, that this has been put on hold this year so that ACHD money can be applied to different things. But this is the grass that's developing in our streets. Many of my neighbors, we take care of that ourselves, but a significant number of others don't. I'm not blaming you all, I'm just saying it gets to be out of control. But the curbs, the main reason I'm here. And I guess way back in the beginning, if when I had been told something would happen and it didn't happen and I called and asked about it, if there had been some follow-up and explanation, it would have been perfectly understandable. But this has been going on for a number of seasons, and some of the sidewalks were fixed, and I just wondering why didn't all of them get fixed while the contractor was in the neighborhood and could have done it, and then I go away, the project's taken care of, and it doesn't come up again. So thanks for your time. You can't please all the people all the time, and in total scheme of things, this is minor, I understand that, but it's major to us because it's in our neighborhood.
well, it's important, whether it's minor or not. It's still
Okay.
important to have safe sidewalks. We do have money in the budget for sidewalk repairs. The reason I ask you for the locations is just to make sure that they do get on a list.
Okay,
of
I can
sidewalks
send
that
those
need to be
to
repaired.
someone in ACHD. I think probably I can imagine who I might send it to, but if you have someone you can suggest I send it to, I'd be glad to. The photos are marked with the location.
Director Wong in the back will give you his email address and you can send them to him,
Right to the top?
right to the top.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm gonna try to skip name. Okay, the next person who checked the box to testify is Ray Stark. And if you would, please state your name and address for the record, even though we all know you.
Ray Stark with the Boise Metro Chamber, P.O. Box 2368 at 83701 in Boise. Madam President and members of the Commission, thank you very much for the opportunity to say some brief remarks on the proposed budget. And if I can back up to maybe less than a year, when the Chamber Board of Directors was considering the vehicle registration fee increase proposed, I can say that there's been robust board discussion on transportation at every meeting since then, in a very positive way, because there's nothing more important than maintaining the transportation infrastructure and improving it in all forms, because if you don't, things will just get worse and more expensive. And that's the basic philosophy of the Chamber Board of Directors. In considering this, we back up a few months where the Chamber Board thanks you for directing staff to prepare a draft budget that contains the 3% property tax revenue increase and the increase for new construction. It has to come with you doing all that you can and us doing all that we can in supporting that decision. And we thank you again for the vehicle registration fee effort that you had. Coming from a chamber meeting today with the governor for our Boise Valley Economic Partnership, I can tell you the governor is extremely committed to improving funding for transportation in the state of Idaho. And it's no secret that this isn't going to be this session. It's going to be the 2021 session. There's going to be a tremendous effort statewide to support the governor in that process. And it's beginning now with the revisions to the transportation study conducted by the governor when he was lieutenant governor about 8 years ago or so. And just from a chamber point of view on the expenditures of the budget, we don't get involved in every project. There's a whole list of projects. We do kind of start out with a chamber recommendation over the last many years to improve the 1 mile arterial grid system within the Ada County Highway District. And we kind of take the measurement of Cole Road to maybe beyond Meridian, definitely from Chinden south, Deer Flat, could be further south than Deer Flat. But it's critical that the mile road sections be improved throughout that area that I just described. The chamber looks upon that as benefiting the economy of the county, therefore the economy of Southwest Idaho and the state. On new projects, we don't get involved too much with specific new projects, except the board of directors feels pretty passionate about the improvements to State Street over the next many years. And of course, you're on that process now with major intersection improvements on State Street, and we know that you're just kind of heading west in that regard. So we support that decision making. Not to think that the Ada County Highway District is all the discussion at the board level. We know and appreciate the Idaho Transportation Department commitment to the improvements of Highway 2026 from Eagle Road to Caldwell. And we know, though, there's going to be highway district involvement in many of that side peripheral intersections and streets along that route. So thank you, it looks like, for your commitment to that partnership with the Idaho Transportation Department. Madam President, members of the commission, I just wanted to just give some brief thoughts tonight and the support of the Chamber Board of Directors on your behalf.
Great, thank you. Are there questions? No?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next person who's signed up is Deanna Smith.
Good evening, Commissioners. I sent in lengthy testimony earlier, so I won't be redundant with that. I wanted to just reiterate a couple of things and add one thing. Sorry, Deanna Smith, 910 Main Street, Suite 314.
You should know that better than anyone.
Boise, Idaho. I know I should. 702. ACHD's proposed budget cuts to community programs is a step in the wrong direction. We strongly urge the Commission to restore the community programs budget to comparable to the 2019 amount and focus priorities on basic infrastructure for human safety. While I commend your staff's efforts to develop complete streets, we must not confuse bike lanes and sidewalks on new arterials as the answer to creating a complete network. We know that for most people who would like to walk or bike for some of their trips, they need more than this to feel safe and comfortable. Your own Complete Streets policy acknowledges this, and I put some language in my previous testimony I sent in to that effect. To do this, we should prioritize implementation of your roadways to bikeways master plan and provide all neighborhoods with safe and comfortable ways to walk to nearby destinations as a starting point. These should not be viewed as enhancements as they are currently in your budget, but as basic service. We support Commissioner Goldthorpe's suggestion that ACHD look at landscaped detached side paths in the parts of the county where there currently is no facility at all for people to walk or bike, and that these be wide enough to accommodate both walkers and bikers for fast and slow to avoid those conflicts. These are many, many places where basic human safety is unserved today, and these would provide some basic infrastructure for people to walk or bike. Whether these are a temporary improvement or until such time as funding is available to properly rebuild or build these roads so that human safety can be addressed and provide basic infrastructure for people to walk and bike. I understand that we also need to address our land use patterns. You struggle with this a lot, and that these decisions are out of your hands. However, land use does not dictate your priorities or your road design. It is your choice now how to best address growth in this valley. Idaho Smart Growth believes that accommodating all the mode choices as best we possibly can is the way to address the growth in the valley. We support ACHD taking your property tax increase if these additional funds are directed to fixing the deficiencies in the existing network by building infrastructure that creates a complete network for all modes. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for
Madam
Deanna?
President, Deanna, with your last comment, would you not support the commission voting to take the 3% if it was not dedicated specifically to your?
If the portion, whatever, I don't know how much that dollar amount is, but as long as some of that went to bringing community programs back up. We're doing great planning. We have a lot of plans, and your neighbors think those plans are going into place. An example that I put in my earlier, what I sent in to you is Kootenai. You know, you have a wonderful plan for Kootenai. The neighborhood worked hard on that. Your staff worked hard on that. It's an excellent plan. And the fact that it's budgeted to be scoped in 2023, in my opinion, is absurd. It should be built by 2023. It's an essential, critical component of your network that you've planned. You've figured out what you want to do there. So I realize we can't do it all tomorrow, but if we can at least continue to maintain our community programs and continue to build this infrastructure while we continue to do the other capital improvements that we're doing around. I realize it means a delay in some of those capital improvements, but I think that's just our reality today. I think we have to delay some of that congestion.
I appreciate that. I just want some clarification on your statement. Thank you.
And to answer your question, Deanna, the property tax increase that's proposed for this year is $2.9 million. So that was the 3% plus growth. Okay, the next person who signed up looks like Gwen Romans. Did I get even close? Oh, okay. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Gwen Romans. I live at 1209 South Lake Point Way in Eagle. This is my Leslie Knope moment. I live right off of Eagle Road. Many times this summer, I could literally not get out of my neighborhood onto Eagle Road and heading towards Chinden. I'm probably one of the hated new residents of Eagle. I've been here 5 years. But my concern is, after speaking with some staff members at ACHD, Idaho Department of Transportation, the mayor of Eagle, 2 city council members, Scott Grow, Mike Moyle, and Gayan. I never heard back from Gayan to Mordon. I have no idea what the plan is to alleviate congestion on Eagle Road in Eagle at all, from State Street up to 84. And I'm pretty bright. I had long, detailed conversations, and there seems to be no agreement on no agreement, no plan, and no effort to coordinate. So I'd love to hear from anyone who wants to take that conversation on. It's just maddening to be a taxpayer and really, literally not be able to get where I need to go.
Well, Madam President,
Yes.
welcome to Ada County, because it's happening all over. And the more people that come, the more congested it's going to be. And Eagle Road is a state highway, and they're not going to build anything else. You have a certain number of crossings across the river. And Eagle Road is one of them. It's the biggest one. We will be widening and enhancing Linder Road down to the west. That's the other crossing. But quite frankly, the more people that move into Ada County, the more congested it's going to be. And that's why on our plans, we have projects, not in your area because that's a state highway, but other areas, to widen out intersections, to enhance the, State Street, to make that a corridor that's going to accommodate, theoretically bus rapid transit as well as more cars. But this is this is the new reality of Ada County. It is not like it was in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, or even the early 2000s. And I'm sorry, but that's the reality. So we do the best we can, but again, Eagle Road is a state highway and we have no control over that.
So it wouldn't be incumbent on the commission to sort of call for a task force of all interested parties, of all interested policymakers? I mean, is that something that you can see yourself doing?
Well, to what end? I mean, for Eagle Road? Right now, ITD.
It's for the whole community.
Yeah, but ITD is concentrating on building out Chinden Boulevard with the help of Costco through the STARS program. They're also looking at widening out I-84. The future is Highway 44, which is State Street going to the west. And then eventually, hopefully, I don't know how many years, taking Highway 16 down to the freeway. But that's their plan right now. We will be coordinating with them on the intersection of Glenwood and State, but even that is pretty far out in the future in order to push more traffic through that, because it's a very highly trafficked area. But as regards Eagle Road, quite frankly, what you see is what you get. And I'm sorry to have to say that, but that's the truth.
Okay.
Ms. Romans? I do live out in Eagle, and just, I'd be happy just to meet with you and kind of give you a little bit of background and hear your concerns. And Commissioner Baker is correct. That is a state highway. So I don't know what kind of reception or information you got from ITD, but I would love to sit down and visit with you so
Okay.
we can.
All right, that would be helpful. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you. Thank you for coming too. I have just one comment. Really appreciate your coming and the comments that you made. I would not disagree with Commissioner Baker that widening roads do not relieve congestion. We will be widening a lot more roads, spending tens of millions in this budget and future budgets to widen roads and intersections. What we don't provide is what you sort of touched on by saying, can't you all get together in a task force or something? How people deal with growth and congestion is knowing that they have meaningful options of other modes and at other times. The connectivity of our roads, there's poor connectivity in your neighborhood, so you don't have a whole lot of connected meaningful options. And meaningful options with transit and bikes and walking in a safe manner that people can do. And I think that's the frustration. That's how we deal with congestion, not with widening, but we will be spending, I think it's upwards of $60 million in this budget to widen roads, but they will still be congested as we've experienced on Eagle Road. It will continue to be congested, and the more we don't deal, like you say, work with all the other governments and private sector to really provide meaningful options, that frustration level will only get worse. So I really appreciate you bringing that forward.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Look forward to meeting with you.
Thank you. Well, that's everyone on the list to check the box that they wanted to testify, but we would love to hear from anyone else in the audience who is interested. If you would, please come up and state your name and address for the record. Even though we know you.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Halliburton, 3025 North Crane Creek Road, 83702. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the budget. Thank you for giving everybody here time in the room. Of course, I'm wearing a Boise Bicycle Project shirt, and you all know me through the Boise Bicycle Project. And I guess I want to talk kind of about two different things. One, BBP related, in that I have a difficult time saying that, like, we can't make things get better, and there's nothing that we can do to address the congestion that's happening. We know that when we give people other options, and the only option isn't to ride in their car, that they at least have the ability to get off the road and do something else. And when they choose to do that, it not only makes that option good for them, but everybody else who's deciding to drive that day. So if I decide to ride my bike, it makes it better for every single person in the audience who's deciding to drive. And we've got to give better options for people to do that. And our community programs are part of that effort. And so when we talk about not having anything that we can do, but then also cutting some of the funding to one of the programs that's actually addressing the issue, I guess I have a difficult time understanding how, if we cut those programs, how we'll address those issues whatsoever. And so I would like to support directing that funding to those community programs. I'm going to shift gears just slightly, knowing that I don't have a whole lot of time. You all probably know this as well, but I'm running for city council, and I've spent the last 6 months riding my bicycle to every single neighborhood association in Boise. I've been to 22 of them. Last night I was at the South Cole Alliance, and I went to the library on Victory and 5 Mile. It was the first time in 10 years that I've ridden my bicycle on the sidewalk because I did not feel safe riding on the road to get to the library, and I passed all these neighborhoods along the way. As I've gone to every single one of these neighborhood associations, at no point have I heard any of them saying, we want faster speed limits, we want wider roads. They all want these community programs. They're all in support of these community programs that make it easier for them to walk, bike, ride, take public transit in their neighborhood. We know that the average family in Boise, average household, takes 10 trips per day in their vehicles. And there's no way that we're ever going to be able to get everybody down to zero, nor should we. But if we can make sure that in neighborhoods we create projects that make it possible to do 8 trips a day, or 6 trips a day, or 4 trips a day, knowing that they're going to have to do that larger trip on these roads, but we're investing in these community programs so that those other trips can get reduced down. I think that that's how we do take on that congestion, and that's how we take the opportunity with the growth that we're having with this property tax increase, directing those to community programs. So that's about my time. Thank you again for the opportunity. I really appreciate the work that you do and listening to everybody up here, so thank you again. Thank you.
Other questions for him? No? All right. Anyone else who would like to speak this evening? No volunteers. Okay. Then I will close the public hearing. And we need to discuss this, and we don't have to do a motion right away, but you can, or we can talk about it. One thing I do want to say, there's a lot of concern about community programs, and that has been a priority for the district. The only thing set in stone on our budget is property tax, the property tax revenue. Any of the rest of it can be changed, and it is changed throughout the year. Money gets moved around as projects slip. We encounter issues in the neighborhood that need to be fixed, so we move money into that, into a fund to do that. So even if we adopt a budget that doesn't have as much in it for community programs, doesn't mean that we won't end up spending it that much anyway. Because the budget's not set in stone other than the property tax revenue, which we have to certify by early September. So that's the only thing that's really set in stone. Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Madam President, I would like to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2021 budget as presented in the staff report, with the specific direction to the director and the budget committee to come back to the commission during the commission's first regular meeting in October 2019 with a proposed list of community projects to be constructed in the fiscal year 2020 based upon the following criteria. Number 1, focus solely on pedestrian gaps to connect to existing pedestrian facilities, considering different design alternative such as asphalt paved pathways. Number 2, prioritize shall be based upon 1, safe routes to school, 2, parks, 3, community centers, and 4, senior uses. Number 3, the project list shall be based upon an approximate $3 million budget and a funding plan to be identified. Number 4, the projects will be identified based on feasibility, cost benefit, pedestrian system efficiency, and constructability for construction in fiscal year 2020-21. Number 5, the commission shall identify the eligible projects which shall be included in the commission's first quarter budget adjustment for board approval. And Madam President, as you know, Numerous constituents have
I'll second that motion.
You'll second that motion, thank you. As you know, numerous constituents have contacted me with regards to the issue of facility gaps within ACHD's existing pedestrian system. Based upon these comments, I have developed a list of proposed gap projects for the developer, the director, and budget committee to evaluate based on my motion's criteria. I would ask that this proposed list of projects be attached to the minutes and request that it be evaluated for consideration. This list should be identified as Exhibit A to this motion and the 2019 City of Star ACHD project lists items 3, 7, 9, and 13. Also, I invite my fellow commissioners to develop a list of any projects they wish the director and budget committee to also consider. Any proposed gap projects should be provided no later than the commission's first meeting in September. Thank you.
Madam President, I have Commissioner Goldthorpe, was your motion with the gap projects in conjunction with approving the budget with the 3% and the growth? Are you combining all of that, or are we just voting
Yes,
on your-
as I mentioned, to approve the budget as presented in the staff report, which would include the 3%.
Well, I'm going to make a substitute motion, and I'm going to make the motion, and then I'll explain why I'm making it the way that I am. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the FY 2020 budget as presented with 2 adjustments. To reduce the property tax amount that's shown at, it's shown at $42,460,000, to reduce that by $2.9 million, which is to not take a property tax increase this year. So that would change that amount to $39,560,000. And then in order to balance the budget, to increase the amount shown for the Highway Users Fund to $27,300,000. So all that does is change the revenue numbers. It does not change the expense numbers. And then I would add to my motion that we direct staff to prepare a list of community projects using the criteria that Commissioner Goldthorpe identified. There were 5 of those, and bring that back to the commission in October, and include with that a list of capital projects that would have to be delayed in order to accomplish those community programs projects. So, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so that's the motion that we're discussing first, and that's the motion that we'll vote on first. The reason I changed the revenue side, 2 reasons. I cannot support a property tax increase. We have a lot of seniors and people who are on fixed incomes who just cannot afford to keep paying more and more and more in property taxes. There was an article recently about folks who've been in their homes for many, many years who are being forced to sell their homes because they can't afford to pay the property taxes. And I just refuse to be part of the problem in that regard. I also do not believe that property tax is the appropriate way to continue to fund the dramatic road improvements that are needed. I think we have to look at more user-based fees, and you've all heard this before, but we have to work with the legislature to figure out a better funding system instead of just putting so much on the backs of property owners. The reason I increased, to balance the budget, the reason I transferred the increase to the Highway Users Fund is that the amount that's proposed for the 2020 budget is actually less than what we've already collected for this year. According to our staff, the Highway Users Fund to date, we have collected, let me find the number, $26,253,944, and the year is not over. So I think we have underestimated the amount that we will collect for the Highway Users Fund for this year. And I think setting it at 27,300,000 will be fairly close to what we'll collect this year. So it would be actually not even an increase in a projection. So those are my reasons, and is there further discussion? I'm sure there is.
Yes, Madam President, one thing that maybe you overlooked was in item number 3, that I said the project list shall be based on approximately $3 million budget and a funding plan to be identified, which is bringing the areas of our budget back to us that will be reduced, whether it be Section 312 money or capital projects is yet to be determined, but I don't anticipate that we'll be reducing any capital projects.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Further discussion on the budget motion. Commissioner Hanson, you always have something to say.
Actually, I'll say, first of all, I want to say thank you to the employees at ACHD. How many folks in the audience are employees? Raise your hand. I just want to make sure you guys are all employees too. I just want to extend my sincere and deep appreciation for all the work you do. The policy discussions we engage in here are policy discussions. This is an independent board charged by the taxpayers to oversee the budget and the policies of this agency. You do the good, hard work, and it's deeply appreciated by me, and I know by the rest of the commission. Often not well appreciated by some members of the public, but you deserve more than what we can fund, whether it's one budget or another. And I just want you to know that regardless of the perspective of any of the commissioners up here, that appreciation is sincere and deep, and I just want to thank you. And I know you're encouraged to come to the budget, see how the budget's going to end up, but it gives me an opportunity to say thank you and to encourage you to pass that on to your colleagues.
Well said. I concur.
Further comments on the budget motion?
Mary?
Mary?
I have a hesitation with, I support our prioritization that we did earlier, but I do have a problem with doing the 3% this year, this budget cycle. I know there's a shortfall, but you look around the valley and a majority of the jurisdictions now are taking the 3%. The county went into the foregone. They have specific projects that's tacked to, so I think that's appropriate. But I don't think this is a situation we can tax ourselves out of. The last 5 out of the last 6 years, we've taken the new construction. The last 2 years, we've done the 3% and the growth. We've stated several reasons why that we were at a critical juncture. Some of it was dissatisfaction with the results of the vehicle registration vote, and the other was to have the money compounding. So, we always have the option to take the foregone too and just hit that head on. So, but I am not in support of the 3% for those reasons.
Well, Madam President. So, the budget is the framing document for everything we do. It's the most important job that we do. That doesn't mean that individual projects or line items are set in concrete. We've seen that. We're going to look at that in the first budget adjustment. And they can be adjusted as circumstances warrant. For example, we saw that with the Cloverdale Bridge replacement. That just happened and we had to deal with it. So rather than take what has been worked on through the integrated 5-year work plan process with collaborative comments by cities and others, and worked on by the commission and the budget committee for the last number of months, we're not fixing it from the dais, because that's never a good thing. So the motion talks, or the original motion talks about doing it in a collaborative way over the next 3 months. And approving this budget doesn't mean that discrete things can't be changed in the near future. This budget, well, The original motion was built on taking the 3% and the growth property tax increases. This budget, as we've heard from Christine, already removes $15 million in capital projects for 2020. And the capital projects is the entire gamut, from intersections to road construction to bikeways, bike paths, pedestrians, ADA projects, everything. That's in 2020. 7.2 million has been removed already for fiscal year 2021. This money would have met the commission's previously stated priorities and targets, which we're obviously not going to be meeting. And it's going to get compounded in the future. Can't do it this year, move it to next year. Can't do it next year, move it to the year on. Eventually, it'll never get built. Not approving the budget with the 3% and the growth will result in a loss of revenue over the next few years of $19 million through the miracle of compound interest. I won't be here as long as some of the other commissioners, but if they don't vote for the 3% and the growth one day and really soon, then they even think they're going to look back and they're going to say, if this substitute motion passes, they're going to look back and say that this is the day when it all began to crash. Taking the 3% and the growth will result in an owner of an $800,000 house. $800,000 house having to forego 3 venti lattes over a year's period of time, because we're asking them with the 3% and the growth to pay $1.45 a month. Someone who has a house valued at the median of $318,000 will pay 45 cents a month. 45 cents a month, total $5.40 a year. Someone whose home is valued at $200,000, and yes, there still are some homes out there that are valued at $200,000, probably not for very much longer, but they still exist, will pay 21 cents a month. A month, 21 cents. Now, while we all agree that taxes are generally too high, that's not the case with ACHD. Us not taking this small amount, particularly from the rich, is not going to be the tipping point for someone potentially losing their property due to not paying taxes. It's the cities, the counties, the school districts that will do that if such an event occurs. ACHD is less than 6% of the total tax bill of Boise citizens. And I'm sorry, I don't know what Meridian or Eagle is, but I imagine that they're pretty much the same. Boise City is 44.5% of anybody's tax bill who lives in the city of Boise. Boise City and Ada County are not going to stop raising their tax rate, 3% growth, foregone, whatever, just because we're not going to do it. In fact, if they even bother to notice that we've done that, they'll think, good, it's more cover for us. And think of this. The more congestion on our roads does not hurt the rich. It inconveniences them. But who does it hurt? It hurts lower income people. The lower income are the ones that if they're late to work one too many times, they get fired. Or if they lose the ability to see their children off to school, how does that help their family? Who does it hurt more when a wheel is damaged by a pothole? Not the rich, they can afford it, they probably got the insurance. It's the lower income who may not even be able to afford to repair that vehicle. We're a county of almost 500,000 people. The estimate for 2019 is 487,670 population. We can't run the transportation system for a county this large on a budget more suited to a population of 350,000 or 400,000. Mr. Goldthorpe, you've mentioned you want more money for community programs. That's fine. The screens are going to start when we don't fund the intersections or whatever in your district. So where will we find the money if we don't do the 3% and the growth, right?
The good news, I've already checked with all the community leaders in my district, and they're okay with it.
It's not them, it's your constituents and your people. Mr. Hanson, your big thing has always been transit and bike lanes and pedestrianism, and that's great. If we forego that 19 million over the next few years, where will you find the money for pedestrian and ADA projects? People will still drive cars, and 95% of the trips will still be taken by car. Do we just ignore them? And don't forget that buses get stuck in traffic too. Buses don't drive on dirt roads if we allow them to go back to gravel. And a big enough pothole can destroy a bus just as well as it can destroy a car. If buses are late due to congestion, that lower income person risks getting fired for being late, just as they would if they drove their own car. Ms. Arnold, I know you're resistant to raising property taxes. You've made that pretty clear today. But taking the growth will cost the homeowner nothing. Nothing. Zero. There is a zero cost to taking the growth. So out of that 2.9 million, what is the?
That
what
is
the
actually
growth?
not correct because everybody pays the amount that's increased
Well,
in the property
you
taxes.
can believe the staff or you don't have to believe the staff, but the math says growth will incur a 0% tax increase. In the last few weeks, we've had joint meetings with 3 cities who have all indicated they want more money spent in their cities. Where will it come from if we don't take the 3% in the growth? Eagle wants us to revive the over $100 million 3 Cities River Crossing Bridge. And you agreed, I was at that meeting, you agreed it should be done. So where will the money come from? You heard Star want their projects moved up and you agreed. Where will that money come from? You can't count on more impact fees because those impact fees need to be matched with property tax dollars. Plus, many of the projects the cities want are not covered by impact fees. They're community programs, they're local streets, they're collectors. They don't get built with impact fees. And Ms. May, this is your first year and I'm sure it's been quite a learning experience, but you've seen the data, you can do the math. You are one of those who will be here longer than I. That $19 million will come in handy in the future, don't you agree? And if you don't take the 3% in the growth, what will you tell Eagle and Star in your district about their projects? We need to be looking out for the greater good. We built this budget on decisions through transparency and collaboration. We've had to make hard decisions, and let us not throw it away because of whatever. Costs of material and labor are going up every year. Excuse me. It's kind of like a Rubio moment. Okay. The Gowen Bridge we heard came in $256,670 over the budgeted amount and $341,000 over the 5, including the 5%. That's 20% higher than the engineer's estimate. What has to be cut to make this bid work, to make all the other bids work? Where will we get the money? On only 1/3 of our projects this year have the bids come in at or below the estimates. That means 2/3 are over the estimate. Where do we get the money? Between 2017 and 2018, excavation cost increased 38%, sidewalks increased 24%, crushed aggregate increased 32%, super pave increased 25%. That's just 1 year. Between 2018 and 2019, the year we're in now, and it's not over yet, costs for these items have increased an additional 7%, while the CPI for the country has gone up 2%. This isn't sustainable, but it's even less so if we deliberately hamstring ourselves. So again, I ask, where will you get the money? Where will we cut? We want to add community programs. Are we just to say to the drivers, sorry? I implore you, commissioners, to acknowledge the math, acknowledge the reality, and vote for this budget as presented by staff, but directed by us and that we have discussed for the last few months. If we want more sidewalks, more community programs, more community projects, the same level of maintenance and relieving congestion for 95% of the trips that are taken by car, where else will we get the money? We have a fiduciary duty to work for the greater good, and the budget, the original motion, does that, and I will not be voting for the substitute motion because that is not fulfilling my fiduciary duty.
Well, I'm gonna address some of your comments, but not all of them. Every single agency that wants to take a property tax uses the same argument. They say, well, it's only an extra $5 a month. I personally question the math on those, but every single agency says it. It's only $5 more a month. if that's really true,
No.
why is it, please don't interrupt. Why is it that people can't afford to keep their homes because they can't pay the property taxes? People are seeing 20% increases in their property taxes. I'm not going to be part of that. And Commissioner Baker, property tax is not the only source of revenue that we have. We also have the ability to go to the legislature and have them look at alternatives for funding. I know that you are angry that the registration fee increase didn't pass last year, and you've stated that you want to punish people for that.
No, I never said I was angry. I was disheartened. And in terms of going to the legislature, Commissioner Arnold, you mention that every year, and every year I don't see you going up there. I'm sorry, but
No, I've been there. I haven't seen you.
I did what we could do. I took on the registration fee, spent my time doing it, and it didn't pass because apparently the community didn't want to have a user fee, and that's fine. But we can only do what we can do, and if you're betting on the legislature doing something, we've already heard it's not going to be till 2021, and I bet it doesn't even happen then. But the fact remains, we have a fiduciary duty, and if we say our 6% of the property tax bill, it's just a bridge too far, well, I don't agree with that. I think I think that philosophy damages the most vulnerable people in our community.
Well, Commissioner Baker, the legislature has made changes that have increased our revenue. House Bill 312, for example, brings in about an extra $7 or $8 million a year. So to say that we can't count on the legislature to do anything, I think is just giving up. And I don't give up easily. And I'm going to read, I had this prepared, and I'd like to have it added to the record. You know, we estimate our budget every year in August, and it seems that every single year we underestimate the revenue. And I'll give you some examples. Going back to 2015, our estimated revenue for the year was $78,136,000. Our actual was over $81 million. So we had an extra revenue that year of over $3 million. In 2016, we estimated $84,630,000. It was actually, our actual revenue for the year was over $96 million. So we had an additional almost $12 million in revenue that year. So we're not very good at budgeting. We're not very good at estimating it, apparently, because we end up with a surplus, which is not a bad thing. In 2017, our original budget was $88,645,000. The actual for the year, $97,759,000. So that was an extra over $9 million for that year. For 2018, our budget that we adopted, $93,575,000. Our actual, $103 million. That's a variance of an extra revenue of $9,461,000. For this year, our original budget that we adopted last August was $103,370,000. Our actual revenue to date, and the year's not over, is $105,359,000. So that's almost $2 million. So I don't think it is unreasonable for us to forego taking a property tax increase this year, because the revenue does come in from other places. And just to reiterate what my motion does, my motion keeps the proposed budget revenue amount at $123,671,200. So it keeps the budget revenue amount exactly where it's been proposed. It just changes where we think it's going to come from.
Well, Madam President, we already heard, and I assume you accept this as truth and a fact, that we've already removed $15 million in capital projects for 2020 and $7.2 million in fiscal year 2021. So we're not keeping up with the needs of this county. And the county's going to continue to grow, and the needs are going to continue to grow, and we're going to continue behind the 8 ball, and $19 million is going to just disappear. Just so somebody making 800 or having an $800,000 house cannot have 3 venti lattes every year. I think that's pretty sad.
Well, I'll repeat myself. Our proposed budget for this year is $123,671,200. My
But that-
motion doesn't change that.
That does not.
You want to increase that amount?
No, the property, you can't increase that amount, but the property tax, Madam President, is something that is stable from year to year. You are betting on the Highway Distribution Fund, which may or may not grow. You are betting that impact fees are going to continue the way they are. The property tax takes, and it compounds every year, which is where you get 19 million. You cannot say that's going to happen with the Highway Users Fund or impact fees.
No, but if you add up the extra revenue over the last 5 years, it's about, let's see, 11, 14, 23, 33, about $35 million in
And we
revenue
have
that we did not anticipate that we would get.
And we have spent every cent of that.
Well, of
And
course,
we
we
still
spent
are, and we
most of it.
still are behind in our needs for our 5-year work plan and our 20-year capital improvements plan.
Madam President?
Yes, Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Just thought I'd fill everybody in on my whereabouts last night. I was at the
Okay.
House Leadership Town Forum over in Meridian, where all of the people on the panel were leaders of the House: Scott Bedke, Mike Moyle, Jason Monks, John Vanderwoude, and some other committee chairmen, including the chairman of the Transportation Committee. Each of them had a little bit of an opening statement, and then questions were given them all night. I had submitted a couple of questions which were not addressed. They had to do with legislative support and why certain things had or had not happened. The chairman of the Transportation Commission was not allowed to answer any questions. And I'm here to tell you tonight that what was said about the governor making a determination for 2021 and what Commissioner Baker is afraid of that not happening is a highly likely event. When we had the defeat last year of the vehicle registration fee, there were a couple of reasons for it. The public, one of them was the public was upset at the lack of fairness between the charges that you and I pay for our vehicles and the charges that heavier trucks pay, which in round figures is that. As soon as a bill was presented this year to allow for the legislature to pass, which would do nothing but allow you and I the opportunity to vote to increase the fairness aspect of that registration fee that stays only in Ada County, that thing was shelved and didn't see the light of day again. So again, I am not sure that we can depend any time in the near future on the legislature for help. We're asking to take care of our problems ourselves, and it's being denied. Thank you.
Okay, further comments? All right, All those in favor of the substitute motion, please say aye. Aye. I heard two. Jim, did you? Two. Mary and me. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, the substitute motion fails, so we'll go back to the original motion, which includes a property tax increase of $2.9 million. All those in favor of?
I would like to make a remark, Madam President, if I could, to this motion,
Oh, sure.
not having spoken to the motion previously. These will be shorter. As many of you know, I approach this very differently than my colleagues. ACHD has an obligation to manage its existing portfolio of assets. About $3 billion in assets, I think. Yeah, Gary's nodding his head. We have an obligation to the taxpayers to maximize the value to the people. When assets do not produce value to cover future liabilities, future default is inevitable. If a private company, I see Mr. Stark is still here. If a private company refuses to deal with this, it goes bankrupt. In the public sector, if a government refuses to deal with this, it raises taxes, seeks bailouts from state and federal government, and ultimately lets the assets crumble. And I do deeply appreciate the employees here who are working really hard not to let our assets crumble. So what is the value that we as taxpayers and citizens must require of transportation infrastructure that has already been built and will be built in this budget? It is much, much more than the convenience of car drivers at the peak hour. We have to base it on measurements of life and safety. People deserve to move about on this public infrastructure in this public space without fearing for their lives and safety. How do we measure that? It is based on health measurements. People deserve to have public assets that help them reduce health risks, not force them into more sedentary, car-dependent lives with related healthcare costs that we all pay for. It is based on housing and household budgets of ordinary people. We have to be able to measure that. People deserve to live in a community without wiping out their income on housing and transportation costs. We have a current housing transportation index. It's been around for years. In our county, it's showing that people, ordinary people, working people, you, me, are subsidizing the lack of value in the distribution of transportation assets. Too many are forced to live further and further away from where they work. Our index in this county and in each of the cities is getting worse. We have to do something about that. It is also based on economic measures. People who paid for these transportation assets deserve to have them attract private investments to increase that value. Now, we are told ACHD can't use these measurements because we are a special purpose district limited by state law. However, Ada County Highway District can work with the cities. We have many joint powers agreements and agreements with the cities and the county so that they can do those measurements and they can help drive those priorities of value. And I believe this budget adds more liabilities, as past budgets did, than value because we aren't measuring it. The CIP-driven expansions and the maintenance of existing assets that have already been expanded push safe, usable networks of community projects to the shrinking portion of the budget we call community projects. I believe that trend will continue under this budget. Spending all our money on the CIP to relieve car congestion, no, it won't happen. We need to put adding value first before simply adding more assets and assume that adding more assets will somehow return value. Just because we don't currently use tools to fully quantify the value of ACHD's assets does not mean we should throw up our hands and increase taxes and spend money again. In our approval of this budget, we can require that in fiscal year 2020, ACHD shift to a system of measurements that treats all modes of mobility equally and eliminates the use of LOS for single occupancy vehicle as the dominant factor in determining deficiency and the need for capital expenditure. If we had these tools in the past, as I've asked for year after year, we would have better tools today to be able to prioritize the very projects Commissioner Goldthorpe have identified. We would already know where they are. So what can we do tonight? Well, ACHD, I think, could make a bold statement by allocating no less than 50% of the ACHD's revenue generated by the property tax for the completion of safe and connected networks of pedestrian and bicycle facilities consistent with ACHD's adopted Livable Streets Design Guide, Complete Streets Policy, and Roadways to Bikeways Low Stress Bike Network Matrix. Value. Our road system is underutilized because we do not fully integrate it with transit. State Street's the best example. You've heard it from me many times. We've been taxing and spending on this one mode in the corridor, even though we know it is designated as the most robust multimodal high-capacity transit corridor in the state of Idaho, with a variety of land uses, health, housing, economic return that's going to be anticipated. Failure to design transit into the design and constructions means that we've already spent millions of dollars, which are probably throwaway costs. There is a difference of opinion on whether the statutory construction of our property tax statute means that we can or can't use transit for our property taxes for integrated transit infrastructure. So I would propose that what we do tonight is ACHD should allocate 100% of ACHD revenue generated by the sales tax, which is approximately $2 million. And that we stop further design and construction until on these major transit corridors, which we already know, until they are designed with integrated transit and other mobility infrastructure. And then, of course, the arterial expansion plan, which most people refer to as the CIP. It's at the root of ACHD's asset creation process. We have to modernize it. ACHD's impact fee ordinance to permit ACHD to have the maximum flexibility to use impact fees to address growth allowed by state laws. If impact fee money can only be spent on assets that create greater liability to the taxpayer, doesn't mean we should spend it. We should wait until the law is changed. Just spending it to create greater liability and less value in the future is so risky to future taxpayers. So what can we do tonight? We could suspend the implementation of the impact fee ordinance until it can be completely overhauled, consistent with the need to invest in assets, all assets related to transportation necessitated by growth that return measurable value to the taxpayers. Now, I have no illusions that these changes would be put on the table tonight. I've tried to put them on the table in the past. They've been rejected virtually every week for the past 51 weeks. 1 week, it's not going to change that. I am not naive into believing that. Yet these are extremely important to my constituents, and I've been talking about them for years. Taxpayers do not want me to acquiesce to business as usual. They want me to vote for fully integrated value from their transportation investments.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Are there further comments on the budget?
Madam President, if I may, I would like to ask Commissioner Goldthorpe if he would consider an amendment to his original motion.
Which might be?
I would be in favor, I'm not in favor of the 3%, but I would be in favor of the new growth. If we could amend the motion.
At this point in time, for reasons that were really well expressed by Commissioner Baker, no.
There you go.
Okay, are there any further comments on the original motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
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 So the motion fails. We do have to pass a budget tonight, so we're gonna have to come up with something different, I guess. We're gonna take about a 15-minute break. And we'll be back. We're not leaving until we adopt a budget.
Jim said.
I thought it was on.
Oh. Oh, oops. What could we do?
Is it on? Okay, we're gonna call the meeting back to order.
Just to hear.
Yeah, just to there.
Oh, he wants it.
We're gonna call the meeting back to order. We are still on, regular agenda item number 3, which is the adoption of our budget. We've had 2 motions that have both failed so far.
Madam President,
Yes, Commissioner May.
I would like to make a motion to approve the FY 2021 budget with 2 changes. Reduce the property tax amount by 1.2 million to 41,260,000, and increase the highway users fund by 1.2 million to 26,100,000. And with a specific direction to the Director and Budget Committee to come back to the Commission during the Commission's first regular meeting in October 2019 with a proposed list of community projects to be constructed in the fiscal year 2020 based upon the following criteria. 1, focus solely on pedestrian gaps to connect to existing pedestrian facilities, considering different design alternatives such as asphalt pathways. 2, prioritized shall be based upon 1, safe routes to school, 2, parks, 3, community centers, and 4, senior uses. 3, the project list shall be based upon an approximate $3 million budget and a funding plan to be identified. The projects will be identified based upon feasibility, cost, benefit, pedestrian system efficiency, constructability for construction in fiscal year 2020-21. The commissions shall select, identify the eligible projects, which shall be included in the Commission's first quarter budget adjustment for board approval. Also, fellow commissioners are invited to develop a list of any projects that they wish the Director and the Budget Committee to also consider. Any proposed gap project should be provided no later than the Commission's first meeting in September. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to second that motion for discussion purposes. That motion includes a property tax increase equal to the amount of the new construction, which was 1.7 million. It does not take the 3% property tax increase of 1.2 million. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Discussion?
Well, Madam President, I'm not going to vote for the motion because while it doesn't get us behind the 8 ball of $19 million over the next few years, it certainly would get us behind the 8 ball, at least half that amount. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not voting for it.
Okay, other discussion? Substitute motion? Okay.
Not yet.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Hey,
Okay, that motion fails. No. Yeah, it didn't matter. It failed with 3 noes, so. All right.
President, I'd like a 5-minute recess, please.
You'd like 5 minutes?
Yep.
Okay, we will take a 5-minute recess.
have something?
I have no idea what they're doing. I have no idea what they're doing.
Are we there yet? Good afternoon. These-
Honestly.
Or initially,
Are the microphones on? Okay.
All right, Madam President?
All right, we're going to call the meeting back to order. Commissioner Baker.
Yes, I have a motion. I would like to make, wait a minute, let me start over. I move that we approve the 2021 budget presented in the staff report with a specific direction to the Director and Budget Committee to come back to the Commission during the Commission's first regular meeting in October 2019 with a proposed list of community projects to be potentially constructed in the fiscal year 2020 based upon the following criteria. I'm not going to repeat them, but it's 1 through 5 in the original motion, and I would add on number 6, which says direct staff to come back to the Commission with a proposal to change the current impact fee ordinance to include those eligible items that are currently allowed under the Idaho Development Fee Impact Act.
So you're
Second that.
incorporating an item that Commissioner Hanson wanted in your motion? Is that,
Okay. If that's from him.
all right,
yes.
we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Yes,
Yes.
it was seconded by Commissioner Goldthorpe. Discussion. Okay, I guess.
Well,
we're gonna-
I will add just my comments that, of course, to change the ordinance requires 4 votes of the commission. It's,
We'll never get.
which, as Commissioner Arnold just said quietly,
probably
you
won't
will
get.
never get.
You probably won't.
It's not necessarily so.
So,
Depends on what comes back.
The expectation will we will have a proposal to have this immediately on the fiscal year that we start, that we will operate under the maximum amount under Idaho state law for impact fees. It doesn't mean it be used for any other modes. We still don't measure or initiate a process. The disdain that was expressed towards trying to incorporate other measures such as pedestrian safety and level of stress in previous meetings made that pretty abundantly clear. There's really fundamental flaws to this.
Did you have a substitute motion you'd like to make, Commissioner Hanson?
No, I've made many a substitute motion and gotten no second, given the approach of the commission.
Okay,
I feel obligated to the taxpayers who've elected me.
okay. Further discussion on the motion?
I guess I have a question for you, Jim. Does that mean that you would not support this motion?
Haven't decided yet.
Okay.
I'd like some testimony for or against. I'd also like to hear some interest by the fellow commissioners to take this seriously, knowing that we will have to have 4 votes in order to change an ordinance of this agency.
You got my attention.
Well, Mr. Hanson, I made the motion, and I view myself as being a rather honorable person, and so I make the motion, I gave my word, I will look at this seriously. But if you're not prepared to vote for it, I'll go ahead and withdraw it.
Could we have Steve explain a little bit so that Mary understands?
So are you withdrawing your motion?
I'd like to hear what Mr. Hanson has to say. I mean, we've been here now
What does
for 2 hours, and I don't know what he's prepared to vote for.
I'd like to ask Mr. Price if he could explain to us what we would be doing differently under the state statute than we are now.
That's a good question.
Madam President, Commissioner Steve Price, General Counsel, there are several different facilities that can be improved under the Idaho Development Impact Fee: sidewalks, storm drain systems. I think those are really the two. It would, right now, existing deficiencies on an impact fee eligible project is not impact fee eligible. There are several things that are outside the road system in terms of infrastructure that the Idaho Development Impact Fee would allow us to incorporate within the decisions in the past by the commission have been conscious of the development community and the amount of the impact fee, and they've excluded some of those items. And we've talked about it in the past. Most certainly, I think from staff's perspective, we're supportive of working through the CIC to come back and provide the facts and the estimated costs and estimated impact fees for including those additional items. I believe that is something that we committed to in the past. I'm not sure where Mr. Inselman is with the advisory committee in doing that, but that's something that's very doable. And we really don't know what that will look like. I don't think there's anybody, even at staff, that can give you a crystal ball at what that will do to the impact fee system. But again, the problem with doing that, increasing what's eligible for impact fees, is undershadowed by the fact that we will not have the general revenue to match. And you can increase the fees. We can't spend those impact fees just how we want. It's really dependent upon the amount of general revenue. So we need the general revenue to be able to have a sustainable program. And that's something that we could come back to the commission with. We could provide that type of analysis. I think it's a worthy exercise. And it's something that we very much talked about in the past. So I hope that answers your question, but I think that's staff's perspective on Commissioner Hanson's proposal.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, we have $39 million in general revenue from the property tax and another $2 million in general revenue from sales tax. And that would be eligible to match for improvements to things that are intentionally excluded from our ordinance under state law. So given the assurances, and I will obviously go on faith that there will be some progress, I'll vote for Commissioner Goldthorpe's motion.
Well, actually, I made the motion, but thank you.
It's a team effort.
So would you restate the item number 6 that you added to the motion?
Sure. This directs staff to come back to the commission with a proposal to change the current impact fee ordinance to include those eligible items that are currently allowed under the Idaho Development Fee Impact Act. So whatever is allowable under law would be what the staff would be looking at.
Correct.
So that would include increasing the impact fees to add sidewalks in?
False.
Sidewalks and what else?
Whatever the Idaho Development Impact Fee Act allows impact fees to be collected for in the transportation system is what we would be looking at. So I would assume it would be, as Mr. Price said, sidewalks, drainage.
Mr. Price, if you
I
would
would
come
assume collectors,
But just Commissioner Arnold stated that it would increase impact fees. That is false. It would allow for more things to be impact fee
It would
eligible.
actually allow us to do more connectivity work, as we've been
Exactly.
talking about tonight.
Collectors aren't even included in our ordinance.
Madam President,
So
Commission.
currently, impact fees are used for arterials, so you're suggesting that we move the money away from building arterials
False.
and use the impact fees for sidewalks and drainage?
No, I
And
didn't say that at all.
No, I said we would look at increasing the universe of things that the impact fees can pay for. And then we would make the decision, once, if that ordinance passes with 4 people, then we would make the decision, I guess, along with the CICAC, to determine, okay, we're gonna do this arterial, but heck, there's a little project over here that we could do some connectivity on, pedestrian on, we'll look at that. So it'll be, I would assume, inside the integrated 5-year work plan.
But you're saying you're not gonna increase the impact fee, you're just,
Oh, I have no idea what we will do. I think that remains to be seen. I mean, it depends on, would we raise the impact fee regardless at some point in time? We've done it before. We could do it again.
Madam President, at this time, though, it's exploratory.
Yes.
Haven't come back to us.
There's clearly a distinction between impact fee eligibility under state law, and what our ordinance does is simply broadens that to allow everything that's allowed under state law. It doesn't require us to increase it. It doesn't force us to spend it on one thing or another. It just says that all those things that appear in our budget and our 5-year plan, there will be more things that have been impacted by growth that will be impact fee eligible. And the expectation would be that our general funds from the property tax and the sales tax would be used to provide whatever necessary matches
Steve, were you
there.
looking at that list?
But
Okay. Madam President, Commissioners, Gary Inselman, Deputy Director, Development and Technical Services, for the record. The impact fees currently pay for the new travel lanes, all 100% of the right-of-way, 100% of the storm drain system. We are already working on our new update to it. We're already have discussed proposing additional items for the commission to consider. New pedestrian crossings necessitated by the new widening of the roadways, bridges being 100% eligible if they have to be replaced because of the road widening. So we're already proposing to bring things forward to you. There are additional items under the statute that we can investigate and bring forward as well, and let you know what those items are as we work through this process over the next year.
So you're already looking at making a proposal to the commission to add those items to the impact fee eligibility? You're already looking at that?
Yes, ma'am. We already started our update to the CIP and the impact fee ordinance.
And this motion will just accelerate things.
And if we did that, would that entail an increase in the impact fee, or just reallocating how the current impact fees are used?
Until we have the capital improvements plan done and look at all of the factors, I can't say if it would increase or by how much.
But in any event, money would be moved from travel lanes to things like sidewalks.
No, the travel lanes would remain eligible. So it would add impact fee eligible costs to each project. If everything else remained the same, yes, the impact fee would be raised. If other factors change through the process, then the fee may or may not go up from its current value.
Madam President, I would think inherent in this motion is the fact that regardless of what they're working on now, which will take a year, in a fairly timely manner, staff will come back to us with, these are the types of things we can also do. And then proceed to include them in any rewrite that we have. Or even add them sooner. I don't know if we could do that, but we'll see.
Everything allowable by state law.
Yep.
We have not provided used impact fees on collectors and facilities like that, which is unfortunate. As a result, impact fees have been spent on widening arterials. It's basically just an arterial expansion plan. And I'd
Not
like to
if we
see-
vote on this motion.
Okay, so, Commissioner Hanson, do I understand your comments to mean that with the addition that they've made to the original motion, that you're willing to support that?
I will.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Nay. So the motion passes 3-2. We have a budget that's been approved with a 3% property tax increase and an increase for new growth. And apparently, we now have a commission, at least 3, that want to change the impact fee ordinance. So the next item that we have to do this evening is certify the property tax amount.
Madam President, I move we authorize the commission president to sign the property tax certification of $42,161,400.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Nay. Motion passes. Any?
4-1?
Yes or no?
They passed the motion and you need to sign it, so, yeah.
Okay.
I voted for it.
Okay, 4-1. All right, that takes us to the public communications portion of the meeting. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission this evening? Seeing no volunteers, meeting adjourned.
Thanks for coming.